Hello, you're listening to Chrissy McMahon, and this is Alchemical Connections. Thursday mornings, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Only on awakeradio.co.uk. Straight talk for the awake and the aware. Join us.
We listen to all original music on Keshe Radio.
You're listening to Awake Radio, straight talk for the awake and aware.
Welcome to Alchemical Connections. First, I'd like to say thank you to Live Mike and his amazing interview with Michael Tellinger, talking about the Anunnaki and other amazing things. You never know what you're going to hear when you tune in to awakeradio.co.uk or shazizradio.com. We just have the most amazing hosts, the best admins, and we got just a wonderful, amazing radio stations here. So thank you for listening, and I'm Chrissy McMahon. Tonight's Sunday. It is January 12th, 2014. And basically, this is the Fukushima. Instead of extinction outcome, we can look forward to multidimensional transformation. That was quoted from Alfred Lambremont Webre, who will be my guest next Sunday at 9 o'clock. p.m. here on Awake Radio and Shazuz Radio, and I want to give the Fukushima update and then do the reading of the MT Keshe message presented to the world concerning Fukushima and alternative free energy reaching the public by the end of 2014. Some really awesome, amazing information. So I hope you'll stay tuned and listen. We're going to start with a really crazy, I think it's ABC News. Odd. It's just bizarre. But before I do that, I'm going to read the latest from RT. That would be Russia Today. And this is RT.com News, Fukushima Radiation, 8-time standard. Government standard, published January 11th, 2014. And this basically says nuclear radiation at the boundaries of the stricken Fukushima power plant has now reached 8 times government safety guidelines, TEPCO has said. The firm has been struggling to contain radioactive leaks at Fukushima since the onset over the crisis in 2011. The levels of nuclear radiation around Fukushima's #1 plant, that's the Daiichi nuclear power plant, have risen to 8 millisieverts per year, surpassing the government standard of 1 millisievert per year, reports news site Asahi Shimbun, citing Tokyo Electric Power Company, better known as TEPCO. The Nuclear Regulation Authority held a meeting on Friday aimed at curbing the rising levels of radiation to the south of the plant, which has long been a problem area. TEPCO told the press that the predominant reason behind the sharp increase in radiation at the plant was X-rays coming from the storage tanks holding radioactive water that has been leaking from the Fukushima facility. The water in the tanks contained traces of radioactive strontium, along with other substances that react with the materials in the tank, is composed of producing X-rays, said officials. Strontium-90 is a radioactive isotope of strontium, produced by nuclear fission with a half-life of 28.8 years. Radioactive water leaking from the nuclear site of Fukushima has been a pressing concern to the international community as well as the Japanese population since the outbreak of the crisis in March 2011. After the discovery of water leaks from the Fukushima plant's underwater tanks, TEPCO has been siphoning off the contaminated liquid and storing it in tanks. In an attempt to neutralize the stored water, TEPCO is using a system known as Advanced Liquid Processing System, or ALPS. And I also read an article where they said that they were going to try to push it out to sea, dump it in the deep, dark sea, because salt water and radioactive, well, cesium-124 or 127 apparently neutralizes or dissipates in salt water. I don't know about strontium, but we'll continue. The system itself is composed of 14 steel cylinders through which the radioactive water is filtered. The radioactive sludge left behind after the water is cleaned is then transferred to high-integrity containers, which are in turn transported to a secure storage facility. Now notice they never tell you what they do with the water. TEPCO plans to clean up all the tainted water through ALPS by the end of March 2015, but the operation has already run into some difficulties. On Tuesday, the crane that lifts the containers to and from the ALPS system stopped working for several days before resuming on Friday. The Japanese government has so far shelled out $473 million to contain the fallout from the beleaguered plant. Officials have also cited TEPCO's whack-a-mole to dealing with the nuclear crisis. The ruling Liberal Democratic Party has put forward the idea of divided the contamination operation between TEPCO and the government. Under the proposal, TEPCO would hand over the water purifying operation and the decommissioning of the reactors to the government-affiliated organization, thus allowing the electric power plant to concentrate on its management and compensation payments. And that was RT Today, yesterday. So I guess we'll just go to this really crazy pod that came from, I believe it's ABC News. I made it so fast, I forgot to look. But here we go. Fukushima fear 3 years.
Tonight, an ABC News investigation inside Fukushima 3 years after that earthquake and the tsunami that caused the meltdown. Tonight we want to show you how bad the radiation is and ask if they are doing everything they can to keep it from coming toward the United States. ABC's Cecilia Vega takes us into the hot zone.
This used to be a thriving community of farms and fishing villages until March 11, 2011. Japan's largest earthquake ever. The tsunami that followed engulfed entire villages, flooding the Fukushima Daiichi power plant and triggering a nuclear catastrophe. 2.5 years later, we gain rare access to examine the fallout by land and by sea to find out if Fukushima is still a threat to the rest of the world. Near the plant, a 12-mile stretch of evacuated land still teems with radiation hotspots.
So this is our permit we've got to get.
Locals call it the no-go zone.
We can go.
On the other side, ghost towns, where time just stood still.
This better work.
We suit up, armed with radiation detectors to tell us when we're in danger. We go inside Fukushima's ground zero to see the unprecedented cleanup underway. Though critics are skeptical, the power plant's embattled operator, TEPCO, is up to the task. The closer we get to the ruins of the meltdown, our radiation detectors climb.
We're in another hot spot.
It is a serious warning. TEPCO told us we can only spend 1 hour inside the plant. Any more time and we risk harmful radiation exposure. Radiation right here alone, about 2,000 times higher than outside Fukushima.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor into a safer location.
It is a vital, some say dangerous first step to shut down this plant. a process that will take 40 years. And here's what TEPCO says it's doing to block the radiation from entering the Pacific.
Underneath this concrete, there's a chemical barrier that prevents the water from floating out. These steel tanks right here, another barrier, and that orange buoy over there is a silt fence, another barrier, 3 right here in this area alone to keep contaminated water from going into the ocean. Will you ever know how much contaminated water has made its way from this power plant into that ocean?
TEPCO spokesman tells me it's difficult to give an accurate number. So we joined a team of scientists on the hunt for answers. What they say they find? Radiation 1,000 times higher than before the meltdown, though it's still below the legal limit for swimming and drinking.
Can the damage that's been done be repaired here, or is it too late?
It's not too late, he says, but Japan can't do it alone. We need help from the rest of the world. And they're not alone. We meet oceanographer and radiation expert Ken Bessler in Fukushima, where he's come to examine the fallout. The Japanese government claims radiation is contained in this small harbor outside the plant. But this team of scientists says they measured radiation leaked to Fukushima more than 70 miles away. Trace amounts of radiation have already been detected in bluefin tuna caught near California, though experts say Americans shouldn't worry. Radiation dilutes as fish migrate to the U.S.
I think the fear of what's happening outside the local area is a bit exaggerated. For Americans to worry about swimming on our beaches when I can swim here, to eat our fish when not too far from here the fish are safe, I think is overblown.
The cleanup goes on. But what about the damage we can't see? Radiation on land and in the ocean that could be Japan's invisible enemy for generations. Cecilia Vega, ABC News, Fukushima, Japan.
And by the way, we did check with some leading radiation experts here in the U.S. who tell us so far no tests on the West Coast have shown the levels of the kind of cesium radiation that would implicate radiation from Fukushima. And you can see a lot more of this.
Well, welcome back. This is Chrissy McMahon. You're listening to Alchemical Connections, and that was ABC News report. I think it was yesterday. They have no record of cesium being reported. Well, I do. I have this really wonderful article from David Patchouli, and actually he's the WHOI.edu, and that actually is a independent research Oceanus Magazine, Volume 50, Number 1, Spring 2013. It gives a lot of information. It's a little short 4-page PDF. The release of radioisotopes from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, March 2011, amounts to the largest ever accidental release of radiation to the ocean. It came mostly in the form of iodine 131, cesium 134, and cesium 137. The primary isotopes released from the reactor, reported Ken Bessler, a marine chemist at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, and that's the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. All these substances can cause long-term health problems, said Bessler, but iodine 131 has a half-life of just 8 days, and so would be effectively gone from the environment in the matter of weeks. Is cesium 134 and cesium 137 with their half-lives of 2 and 30 years respectively, which would remain in the ocean for years and decades to come. Now we're going to get back to this article, but I'm going to jump to the ENE News because radiation jumps around Fukushima plant now 1,000 times or 1,000% previous levels. TEPCO kept strontium-90 data secret for months. Officials knew of increase, but too busy to do anything. Government holds Friday meeting about what can be done, and this was published January 10, 2014 by the ENE News. I have no individual author. Asahi Simbu, January 10, 2014, emphasis added, TEPCO withheld 140 measurements of radioactive strontium levels taken in groundwater and the port of the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power plant. That's the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. between June and November last year. Strontium levels exceeded the all-beta reading in some instances, leading the utility to decide that they were wrong and to withhold them from public releases. TEPCO officials said January 8th. Previously, TEPCO officials said they had not released the data because the numbers were not confirmed. Company officials on January 8th insisted the utility had no intention to conceal information. Japanese radio NHK on January 10th. Nuclear regulators will discuss measures to prevent the increase of radiation levels around the crippled Fukushima Daiichi plant. The levels of radiation at the plant border rose to more than 8 millisieverts in annualized figures in December from less than 1 millisievert in March in the same year. The regulators say that due to the increasing number of storage tanks for radioactive water at the plant, they explain that the water basically emits beta rays, which are too weak to penetrate the steel tanks, but they say when beta rays hit metal, stronger X-rays come out of the tanks. Well, that's something we're definitely going to have to look into. But we get a lot of X-rays when we go to the airport or to the dentist or to the courthouse. Okay, on Friday, the regulators are holding a meeting of experts to discuss measures against the increase. The officials say they have been aware of the problem for a certain period of time, but could not deal with it as they were occupied in the issue of contaminated water. Asahi Shimbun, January 10, 2014, radiation levels around the boundary of the crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant have risen 8 times to a standard of 1 millisievert per year. Nuclear Regulation Authority is scheduled to hold their meeting to discuss countermeasures. With a succession of high radiation levels reported on the plant premise and elsewhere, the NRA set up radiation monitoring devices at an additional 400 locations. That's all they have at that particular article. And then we go to yesterday. Kyoto, radiation surged at Fukushima. Government tells TEPCO take action. Asahi, fish found with extremely high levels of radioactive materials 40 kilometers from the plant. Now, before I read this January 11, 2014 article by E&E News, I just want to reiterate that apparently Benjamin Fulford bought himself a Geiger counter and has been monitoring the food that he's been purchasing in Japan where he lives. I think he's about 80 miles from Tokyo or somewhere like that. I'm sorry if I'm misquoting, but apparently he's saying there's no increase in radiation around the area where he's living. Alfred Lambremont Webre posted that information, asked questions about what other people think, and in another comment stated that it's not the land that people are concerned about, but it is the water, the ocean. The ocean seems to be, and that's why I want to get back to that Woods article or PDF that talks about the cesium. So we'll go into this article. Asahi, January 11, 2014. Fish with very high levels of cesium found near Fukushima. Extremely high levels of radiation. The Fisheries Research Agency said January 10th the Black Sea bream had 12,400 becquerels per kilogram of radioactive cesium, 124 times the safety standards for foodstuffs. The fish was caught at the mouth of the Nildagawa River in Iwaki, Fukushima Prefecture. On November 17th, the site is 37 kilometers south of the stricken power plant. The Research Institute said it will study the fish further to try and determine when it became contaminated and such high levels of radioactive cesium. I would imagine 37 kilometers, I would half that for miles, so I would say it was probably like 15 miles south of the Fukushima Daiichi plant. I'm guessing, maybe less. Kyoto, January 11, 2014, nuclear regulators on Friday called on TEPCO to take action to address rising radiation levels on the border of the crippled Fukushima No. 1 plant premise, which have jumped to levels 8 times, which we already read. According to the plant operators, TEPCO's an evaluation of radiation exposure caused by toxic water, rubble, and debris and other waste kept at the plant was below the limit of 1 millisievert per year as of March, but surged to 7.8 millisieverts as of August. Now, it's just me, but I remember reading something about they actually took away a lot of the recording devices. So is it that they're just reporting it, or they're just bringing back the recording devices, or a little bit of both? Today's most viewed articles: radiation expert, Fukushima plant out of control, nuclear fuel is now in the ground, no way they can get at it, we'll just wash uranium out to sea, pollution of Pacific Ocean to continue more or less forever. There's an audio and video for that ENE News article at enenews.com. Gunderson made another statement: U.S. government buying 14 million potassium iodine pills used during nuclear disasters. I don't know why they placed this big order right now. I didn't actually see that. I just noticed it on the side column. This was today, actually published today. And there is an audio for that, so maybe I can get a copy of it. I'm not sure where that is coming from. But I'll go back to Gunderson. Nuclear expert Arnie Gunderson of Fair Winds Energy Education, and that's his website, January 6th. I don't know why the government is buying 14 million tablets. The United States has bought a large order, 14 million pills, but the interesting part about this is that the iodine from Fukushima Daiichi is gone. It decays away in less than 90 days. There's no more radioactive iodine left, so the question is, why are they buying pills now? Are they going to stockpile them for another nuclear accident, another nuclear bomb explosions? The pill doesn't protect you from depleted uranium. It doesn't protect you from cesium or anything. The pill that the government is buying is just to protect you from radioactive iodine. When the nuclear plant shuts down within 90 days, there's no iodine left. So I don't think they're buying them for Fukushima Daiichi, but I don't know why they placed this big order right now. Soon after 3/11, we provided Japan with 15 million potassium iodine pills. For the full interview, for Coast subscribers, I guess there's a backup YouTube. I'm trying to get it. I guess I have too many web pages open. I'm not actually okay. I do have the Arnie Gunderson is actually an hour and 45-minute conversation, which was posted January 11th, which probably would be worth checking out. So I have another article to read, and I'd like to go back to the radioisotopes in the ocean. In fact, the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, which is a private organization with its own website, and this is an article, Radioisotopes in the Ocean, What's There, How Much, How Long. I believe this was in May of 2012. I don't think it was 2013 when this article. Yeah, it was spring 2013. So it's only about 6 or 8 months old. So, but it gives a good explanation of the radioactive isotopes. In fact, most of the cesium present in today's oceans, Brussler noted, is a remnant of the atmospheric nuclear weapons testing conducted by the United States, France, and Great Britain during the 50s and the 60s. Lesser amounts are attributed to the Chernobyl nuclear accident in '86 and to local sources, such as the dumping of low-level waste from England's Sellafield nuclear facility into the Irish Sea. So, TEPCO is not the only one doing that. Prior to Fukushima, however, the levels of cesium-137 off the coast of Japan, as cataloged by Michio Oyama at the Meteorological Research Institute in Japan and others, were among the world's lowest at around 2 becquerels per cubic meter. 1 becquerel, or 1 BQ, equals 1 radioactive decay event per second. Against this background, the concentration measured in early April of 2011 were all the more alarming. At the source waters closest to the Fukushima Daiichi, that means number 1, nuclear power plant operated by Tokyo Electric Power Company, better known as TEPCO, concentrations of up to 60 million becquerels per cubic meter were reported, high enough to cause reproductive and health effects in marine animals. Now note that that was reported in April 2011, which would have been a month after the accident. Most of the cesium from Fukushima came from the millions of gallons of water poured into the reactors during the efforts to cool them. These subsequently flowed into the ocean as runoff or via groundwater. One major leak from flooding buildings at the plant also added cesium to the ocean. Once the leak was plugged in early April, cesium levels close to the shore fell off dramatically. Buessler said, they did not, however, fall out of sight. Dilution due to ocean mixing should be enough to cause a decrease in concentration down to background levels within a short period of time, Buessler told his audience at the Fukushima and the Ocean Conference in November 2012. Yet all the data we have show that measurements around the site remain elevated to this day, up to 1,000 becquerels per cubic meter. He hastened to put that number into context. 1,000 becquerels is not a big number for cesium. Just for comparison, that's lower than the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency limit for drinking water. And at that level, Buessler stressed, the cesium in Japanese coastal waters is safe for marine life and for human exposure. It's not direct exposure we have to worry about, but possible incorporation into the food chain, he said. That and the ongoing high levels of radioactive cesium. The fact that they have leveled off and remain higher than they were before the accident tells us there is a small but continuous source from the reactor site. The routes and rates of radiation. Away from the coast in the open ocean, the radioactivity that showed up first came from fallout from the atmosphere carried out to sea by winds. The winds limited radioactive exposure on land, as more than 80% of the fallout fell on the sea. Only a few weeks after the accident, a research cruise undertaken by Makio Honda and colleagues at the Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology, or JAMS-TC, JAMS-TEC, detected low levels of both cesium-137 and cesium-134 some 1,900 kilometers, 1,180 miles from Fukushima, from radioactive gas carried out to sea by winds. The importance of the shorter-lived cesium-134 isotope, Buessler said, was that it offered definitive proof that the contamination had originated from Fukushima. Cesium-134 is not naturally present in the ocean, and it has a half-life of only 2 years. And the amount of it introduced by weapons testing or other pre-Fukushima sources would have long since disappeared. In June 2011, Buessler led a quickly organized expedition aboard the research vessel Kai Mikai o Kanaloa that took the comprehensive look at the fate of Fukushima irradiation, both in the ocean, open ocean, and in marine life, beginning 600 kilometers offshore and coming within 30 kilometers of the crippled nuclear plant. The research team sailed a sawtooth pattern, gathering water samples from as deep as 1,000 meters and collecting samples of plankton, zooplankton, and small fish. They also released 24 drifters to track currents. These instruments move with ocean currents over months and report their positions via satellite. Like their Japanese colleagues, Buessler's team measured elevated levels of both cesium-137 and the telltale cesium-134 in the water they collected. These levels varied widely across the sampling area, however, which indicated the complexity of the currents at play, dominated by the mostly eastward flow of the mighty Kuroshio current. the Pacific Ocean's equivalent of the Gulf Stream in the Atlantic. The first thing we noticed was that when we got to the Kuroshio, we lost the cesium-134 signal, Brusler said. That confirms that the Fukushima radioactive fallout from the atmosphere did not reach these more southern latitudes. The scientists believe that Kuroshio acted as a barrier blocking radioisotopes, contaminated waters from flowing through it and to the south. An unprecedented release of radioisotopes to the ocean. It goes on to show the difference between weapons testing in the 1960s, the level of radioisotopes from fallout from atmospheric nuclear weapons tests measured in the 60s off Japan were higher in the immediate areas near Bikini Atoll and other places where weapons were detonated. Chernobyl in 1986 levels of radioisotopes measured in the Baltic Sea and Black Sea from atmospheric fallout following the disaster in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant located in Ukraine, hundreds of kilometers inland. So the becquerel in cubic meters, the weapons testing went a little over 1,000 becquerels. I'm sorry, that was less than 100 becquerels for the weapons testing. Chernobyl got over 8,000 becquerels, according to this chart, and Fukushima levels of radioisotopes measured from March to July 2011 in surface ocean waters off the coast of Japan following the disaster at the Daiichi nuclear power plant that entered the ocean from atmospheric fallout and from water used to cool damaged reactors, which flushed into the ocean, were well over 1 million becquerels. So that was between March and July, and that would definitely give credence to some of the things that we've seen, and I'm going to get to that soon. Modeling the ocean. Lacking dipsticks in the ocean to measure the ongoing dispersal of radioisotopes or regular research cruises, scientists must rely on mathematical ocean models to predict where radioactivity from Fukushima is flowing. These incorporate the best-known physics of ocean current dynamics, but modeling the unique currents off Japan's Pacific coast can be a frustrating task. JAMS Tech Yukio Matsumoto said at the Tokyo conference. In particular, the waters off Fukushima are squeezed between the Kuroshio, which flows northeastward near Chiba Prefecture and then turns eastward, and the colder and fresher Oyashio current, which flows south from the Arctic Ocean. The collision of these two major currents in the western North Pacific creates a region of dynamically mixing waters that makes for prolific fishing grounds, Matsumoto said, and also produces 100 to 1,000 kilometer wide eddies and complicated small-scale effects, all of which must be incorporated into any large-scale simulation. In addition to these open ocean phenomena, he said, we must also account for coastal, I guess that would be a phenomenon, and for the interactions between the two. To take up this challenge, JAMS Tech has developed a nested system of models. Some cover wider territory, sacrificing detailed resolution. Others provide more details by focusing in on smaller areas. The base model, called the Japan Coastal Ocean Prediction Experiment, or JCOPE, is a global-scale ocean simulator. Contained within the JSCOPE 2, a regional model covering just the Northwest Pacific and incorporating observed data on temperature and salinity in order to produce realistic ocean currents. Tucked within the regional model and offering still finer resolution is JCOPET, a coastal model that can simulate tidal effects. Matsumoto stressed that the accuracy of each of these dispersion models and several others currently being run at his and other institutions in Japan and elsewhere depend largely on actual measurements put into the models before they are set in motion. The observed data are quite limited in time and space, and we cannot say which model is the best, Matsumoto said, especially given ongoing uncertainty about the amount of radioisotopes that entered the ocean. Brussler reviewed the range of current estimates of the total cesium releases. The totals vary widely, he noted, but are beginning to converge on a total cesium-137 release of between 15 and 30 petabecquerels. That's 10 to the power of 15 becquerels. In comparative terms, he said, this is slightly more than the amount put into the sea by Chernobyl, although the total environmental release from that accident in 1986 at 85 petabecquerels was much higher. It says, of the fraction delivered as atmospheric fallout, most estimates lies between 10 and 15 petabecquerels. The number for direct discharge, 3 to more than 15 petabecquerels, are much less certain, Brussler noted, nor does the total numbers amount for the release of other isotopes from lingering plant discharges, including strontium-90, which, although present in quantities much lower than cesium, is of concern. It accumulates in the bones of fish that could be eaten. To understand the ultimate fate of Fukushima cesium in the ocean, scientists will have to uncover not just the paths and speed of ocean currents that transport cesium across the Pacific, but also how cesium mixes into deeper layers of the ocean and how much accumulates in particles of organic detritus or marine snow that sinks down and settles on the sea floor. Smaller but ongoing radioactive inputs from rivers and groundwater in the vicinity are being reported by Japanese scientists and will also have to be considered, although some of these puzzle pieces are beginning to fit together, Brussler said. Significant gaps in knowledge remains. And that brings me to this The Truth article, exposing the truth about our world one story at a time. This is thetruthwins.com archives 36 signs the media is lying to you about how radiation from Fukushima is affecting the West Coast. And most of the articles I'm reading actually came from this particular website article. The West Coast of the United States is being absolutely fried by radiation from the Fukushima nuclear disaster, and the mainstream media is not telling us the truth about this. What you are about to see is a collection of evidence that is quite startling. Taken collectively, this body of evidence shows that nuclear radiation from Fukushima is affecting sea life in the Pacific Ocean and animal life along the west coast of North America in some extraordinary ways, but the mainstream media continues to insist that we don't have a thing to worry about. The mainstream media continues to insist that radiation levels in the Pacific along the west coast are perfectly safe, and we heard that in the first podcast from ABC News. Are they lying to us? Evaluate the evidence, compile below, and come to your own conclusions. And we always say that whatever you hear on my show, although I may feel strongly about the evidence or the information that I'm reporting on, I really strongly suggest that you do your own homework. And that's what I did and how I got these other articles. I looked at some of the information and I just clicked on the websites and then I reviewed, and the more I got into the information, it led me to other websites that gave more information. Unfortunately, I can't physically go to these places, so I have to depend on this information to be as accurate as possible, and I've done my best since November 17th when TEPCO started their cleanup at Reactor 4 at the Daiichi nuclear power plant to be presenting facts rather than opinions. But it is so convoluted with opinions because there's so many people that are looking at the evidence that we're being given, the limited evidence, and they're coming to conclusions that are not far off the mark. But as you continue to listen to this information, there is going to be a lot of solutions. There's going to be things coming up that are going to be much more hopeful. So one of the number one independent research have measured alarmingly high levels of radiation on the beaches of the West Coast. For example, a video post was taken December 23rd at Pacific Estate Beach. Radiation levels near the water are up 5 times higher than normal background radiation. But it doesn't differentiate what kind of radiation that it's reading. So that's one of the issues with that video. Number 2, according to Oceanus magazine, the total number of cesium-137 that has been released into the Pacific Ocean from Fukushima is 10,000 to 100,000 times greater than the amount released into the oceans by Chernobyl disaster or by the atmospheric nuclear weapons tests of the 1960s. Now, mind you, we just read that was probably in April 2011, right after the accident. And as a result, cesium-137 is one of the isotopes, radioisotopes, that actually gets dispersed in salt water. So, I mean, it's not a misleading comment, but it is a comment that needs to be taken with other information. Number 3, former MSNBC host CENK Senk Ugar has admitted that while he was at MSNBC, he was instructed not to warn the public about the radiation coming from Fukushima. And it says, and I quote, "I was on MSNBC at the time when this happened. I said, quote, don't trust what the Japanese government is saying. They'll say trust what the electric power company is saying. Go, 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 get out of there. Get as far away from that plant as you can. It's literally a core meltdown," end quote. And they always don't want people to panic. So they were always like, quote, "Oh, it's going to be okay," end quote. I'm like, quote, "You're crazy, man. Don't be anywhere near that reactor," end quote. And I remember at the time, of course, not at the Young Turks, but on cable news, people were like, quote, "Hey, Senk, I don't know that you want to say that because the official government position is that it's safe," end quote. "Oh, is that the official government position? Now go explain that to the people who served on the USS Ronald Reagan." And then that comes to number 4. 71 U.S. sailors who assisted with the initial Fukushima relief efforts have developed serious diseases such as testicular cancer, thyroid cancer, leukemia, unremitting gynecological bleeding, and brain tumors since that time as a result of exposure to radiation coming from Fukushima. And it would make absolute sense because there was a sudden plumes of smoke from the explosion of the meltdown. The water that they put in to cool into the water, I'm sure there's something that comes off of the water, doesn't all stay contained in the water. It was not a safe situation, and probably the best thing to do would probably been to get out of there, but they tried to help people. So number 5, something is causing starfish all along the west coast of the United States to literally disintegrate into piles of white goo. Researchers say nuclear pollution from the 2011 earthquake in Japan that damaged the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant could be partly to blame for the disease wiping out starfish among the west coast. Dr. Peter Raimondi of the University of Santa Cruz said, "Something is making starfish susceptible to what's believed to be a bacteria coined wasting disease. It's essentially disintegrate the marine invertebrates into white goo after the starfish loses its legs." And we just had one report of that, but people have been continually, it hasn't been an ongoing thing. From what I understood, it was just a one-time reported. Number 6, bald eagles are dying in unprecedented numbers in Utah, and nobody can figure out why this is happening. Now, I'm not sure how many miles Utah is from the west coast, but it's not that close. But bald eagles are dying in Utah, 20 in the past few weeks alone, and nobody can figure out why. Hundreds of majestic birds, many with the wingspan of 7 feet or more. And I'm going to click on this link because I really want to know what the date is. It's like, Okay, I don't know where it went to. Oh, there it is. This would have been December 29th, 2013. So that wasn't that long ago. Many of the eagles were brought to the Mammoth Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in northern Utah, where Buzz Mathaler, a longtime animal caretaker, and other handlers tried to save the birds. Within 48 hours, most were dead. And it's hard to have your national bird in your arms going through seizures in a way I can't control when you can see its pain but don't know what's happening to it, said Mathaler, 56, co-founder of the facility in Ogden. As a human being, you just have problems with that, and when you lose one, it just grabs your heart. So they were feasting on carp and other fish that swim in the nearby freshwater bays. They gathered along the Great Salt Lake. Sorry. So back to the 36 signs. Earlier this month, however, the hunters and farmers across the country, across 5 counties in northern and central Utah, began finding the normally skittish raptors lying listless on the ground. Many suffered from seizures, head tremors, and paralysis in the legs, feet, and wings. And that website is the Seattle Times, The Mystery Over What's Killing Bald Eagles in Utah, seattletimes.com. Oh, and back to number 7. Huge numbers of dead birds are dropping dead and washing up along the coastlines of Alaska. It is being reported that many of the carcasses of the dead birds are broken open and bleeding. I'm not an expert, but from what I understand about radiation poisoning, you would kind of have different things like that. But this sounds more like a HARP incident. And here we are at the truth again, the truthwins.com article. This is by Michael Snyder on December 10th, 2013. I don't see any links back to any other websites but the truth, so kind of goes back on itself. But it has a picture of dead birds, so I'm not sure. Number 8, the recent deaths of thousands of birds in Oregon is absolutely baffling scientists, but we've been having that for some time now, for several years, and I think it was before Fukushima when we started noticing that. And one of the first incidents of blackbirds had internal damage to their bodies. We could say as if they were flying and hit a wall, crush their insides. So I tend not to think that would be direct result of nuclear radiation. Probably more on the lines of electromagnetic frequencies, HARP, scalar, that kind of thing. Number 9, something is causing large numbers of seals and walruses up in Alaska to lose their hair and develop oozing sores. Now that sounds a lot more like radiation sickness. But I watch a lot of old movies and television. So AlaskaDispatch.com, illness plaguing seals and walruses brings disease hunters to Alaska. And although the skin ailments that appear to be affecting the seals and walruses in Alaska have a generic name, ulcerative dermatitis disease syndrome, there are many unanswered questions about the illness. Scientists and hunters here and in Russia want to better understand what's causing the sickness and how concerned about them they should be. And this article was March 21st, so this is an older article. Okay, substantial numbers of polar bears along the coast of Alaska are suffering fur loss and open sores. And just because I want to see the dates, I'm clicking on these links so I have a more general idea. This is U.S. News on NBCNews.com. And this was Michael Lanos, no date. Oh yeah, here. It was April 8th, 2012. So it's a little bit of an older article, but it would make sense. That would be a ongoing issue after being smacked with the cloud plume of radiation coming off of Fukushima, March 11, 2011. Number 11, there's an epidemic of sea lion deaths along the California coastline. So this too as well could possibly be an older article, and this is the zerohedge.com. Is Fukushima radiation causing the epidemic of dead and starving sea lions in California? By George Washington on 3/31st, 2013. So these articles are a little bit older. Number 12, the population of sockeye salmon along the coastline of Alaska is at a historic low. Number 13, something is causing Pacific herring to bleed from their gills, bellies, and eyeballs. Now that more or less sounds like a radiation affective disorder. And this is the Globe and Mail. This is Vancouver, the Globe and Mail, August 13, 2013. Independent fishery scientist Alexander Morton is raising concern about the disease she says is spreading through Pacific herring, causing fish to hemorrhage. Ms. Morton has called on the Federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans and Wild Salmon make me miss my place, Mr. Muddy. Large-scale herring kills and affect wild salmon, which feed heavily on herring. So it's cyclical. I mean, they always recommend that when there is a problem with poisoning to eat the smallest available food source, but it seems like it's just going up the food chain. It's not. It's concentrated and it's moving, and as it said in one of the other articles, that it gets into the bones of these fish, and we're eating it. I don't know if heat releases it when you cook it or what, or not just in their bones, it's in their bodies. So number 14, dangerous levels of cesium-137 have been discovered in mushrooms and berries grown along the west coast. Now that's an issue outside of Chernobyl. They test the children there in the Ukraine and ask them if they've been eating wild berries and mushrooms, because they are highly concentrated. And that's what I was just saying, that we're always told to eat like eat the shrimp, don't eat the lobster, or eat the smaller available food stuff. But cesium-137. And I'm a little bit confused because I don't remember which one is the more dangerous, which one lasts. I believe the 137, because that would be the higher number, couldn't last up to 30 years. So yeah, according in number 15, please check out number 14, the mushrooms and berries. Please check out information on Chernobyl, and you will see the ongoing problems that they're still having there. A lot of information about that. Just amazing that people still think nuclear energy is a safe and effective way to boil water. Number 15, according to an absolutely shocking report put out by the National Academy of Sciences, it has been proven that Pacific bluefin tuna have transported radioactive material across the entire North Pacific Ocean. Now, this was a recent article that had come up in the past week. We report unequivocal evidence that the Pacific bluefin tuna, Thunus orientalis, transported Fukushima-derived radionuclides across the entire North Pacific Ocean. And this is, I guess it's Proceedings of the National Academy of Science of the United States of America, the PNAS, and it's a PDF on their website, and it's Pacific bluefin tuna transport Fukushima-derived nucleotides from Japan to California. Article by Daniel Madigan, Sophia Bonman, and Nicholas Fisher. I'm looking for a date. This would be March 22nd, 2012. Fukushima Daiichi release of radionucleotides into ocean waters caused significant local and global concern regarding the spread of radioactive material. We report unequivocal evidence. They were elevated in 15 Pacific bluefin tuna sampled in August 2011. So that would make sense that after the initial radiation plumes, the water, the cooling water that was spilled back into the ocean, they can't separate the cesium-134 from the cesium-137, just dumped back into the ocean and the leak, which was plugged. At what did we say, 1 million becquerels? I mean, I have to go back to this picture here on this PDF from Woods Oceanic. I went up too high, and it was 1 million. I just want to make sure I am becquerels per cubic meter. Yeah, it's over 1 million becquerels, and that was on the high end. The low end was at 100. So we're well above Chernobyl. Chernobyl was only about 8,000 in 1986, and if it has a 30-year life, so we're just about. But if it's continuing to melt there, I mean, the radiation didn't just disappear in Chernobyl. So that's another issue. I will not get into that. I will save that for another time. Number 16, and there's 32 of these. We're coming up to the top of the hour, so I think I'll read this last one and go for a break, and then we'll come back and read the rest. Something seems to be causing a substantial spike in the death rate of killer whales living off the coast of British Columbia. And this is the ComoNews.com. Researcher high death rate, puzzling behavior in BC orcas by Associated Press and KOMO staff, published October 24, 2013. It was updated the 24th of 2013, and it says, Dr. Lance Barrett Leonard says he fears changes in the ocean's environment are prompting odd behavior and an unusually high mortality rate. Barrett Leonard said, the southern resident orcapod, which is found in the Salish Sea between Vancouver Island and the BC mainland, has lost several matriarchs over the past 2 years, and he's noticed a lack of vocalizations from the normally chatty mammals. The Vancouver Aquarium Cetacean Research Team says the whales were also seen the past 2 summers traveling in small groups further offshore to find food, behavior more typical in winter than summer. At the same time, the researchers say that numbers of normally transient killer whales have been increasing over the past 25 years. And Barrett Leonard says the changes are striking and need further study. So at number 16, we're going to take a very, very short break, and we're going to come back and finish the 32 signs the media is lying to you about how radiation from Fukushima is affecting the West Coast. I want to thank you for listening to Alchemical Connections. This is Chrissy McMahon, and this is awakeradio.co.uk, and we're broadcasting on shizizradio.com. And I will be right back.
You're listening to Shiziz Radio, where originality and original music never stop.
Isn't that mad scientist dude? Welcome to Awake Radio.
You're listening to Awake Radio, straight talk for the awake and aware.
Well, I want to thank Muddy Mudman for that beautiful music and for those wonderful jingles. For allegedly Dave, who posted some really amazing stuff on Facebook, which I really wanted to get to. But we just finished the first hour of Alchemical Connections, and I'm your host, Chrissy McMahon, here on awakeradio.co.uk and shazizradio.com, and this is the Fukushima continuation update for Awake Radio. And as we listen to that absolutely beautiful music, I'm going to reset my website and go back to 36 signs that media is lying to you about how radiation from Fukushima is affecting the West Coast, and that's at thetruthwins.com. And we were on number 16. So we'll go to number 17 of 32, or it was 36, my mistake. I'm trying to shorten it because it's a lot of reading. And we've already read an hour's worth. Number 17, experts have found very high levels of cesium-137 in plankton living in the waters of the Pacific Ocean between Hawaii and the West Coast. Now, how does plankton affect the food chain? Well, this was the Japan Times News.com.co.jp. Researchers find high cesium in some Pacific plankton. And this is Kyoto. Scientists said Tuesday they have detected radioactive cesium from the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear plant and plankton collected from 10 points. And this was May 2013. From all 10 points in the Pacific they checked, with the highest levels at around 25 degrees north latitude and 150 degrees west longitude. Researchers from the Japan Agencies for Marine, Earth Science and Technology were among the team members who released a report on the findings at the meeting of the Japan Geoscience Union at the Makuhori Mise International Convention Center in Chiba Prefecture. The researchers collected plankton at 10 points in the Pacific from off Hokkaido to Guam between January and February 2012. So that was almost a year after the accident. They detected cesium-134 in plankton at all 10 points. So that would indicate that in January and February, cesium has a 2-year life. Cesium-134 would continue to be affecting everything. The density of radioactive cesium was the highest at 8.2 to 10.5 becquerels per kilogram in samples collected from waters around 25 degrees north latitude at 150 degrees east longitude. The lowest concentration at any of the 10 points was 1.9 becquerels per kilogram, and 1 becquerel is considered the norm. This density of cesium in seawater was highest in waters at around 36 latitude to 40 degrees north, the team said. So I don't know if I should read every one of these articles, but number 18, one test in California found that 15 out of 15 bluefin tuna were contaminated with radiation from Fukushima, which we've already gone over. Number 19, back in 2012, the Vancouver Sun reported that cesium-137 was being found in a very high percentage of the fish that Japan was selling to Canada. 73% in mackerel, 91% in halibut, 92% in sardines, 93% in tuna and eels, 94% in cod and anchovies, 100% of the carp, seaweed, shark, and monkfish. Now these are fish that the other higher chain animals, such as seals and whales, feed off of. Mackerel's always been considered a safe food, but I never really liked it. But maybe the mackerel they gave me was freezer burnt. I don't know, but it was awful. But anyway, I haven't eaten tuna fish for months. And although I do have tilapia, which is farm raised, in my freezer, you know, I really, and right after this happened, I had eaten some shrimp, and the shrimp gave me a really bad allergic reaction. And I do have a sensitivity to intravenous iodine, which they use to do their radiological scans when you get tested at the hospital. So I don't get that anymore because I have a a real serious reaction to that. But I started to have the same reaction from eating shrimp. And one thing I wanted to get into that I'm highly involved in, urine therapy and distilled liquids, have a natural effect of retraining the body not to have the allergic anaphylactic shock effect, and along with other problems. So not that I want to get into that now, we're only at number 19. But number 20, an EU-funded study concluded that Fukushima released up to 210 quadrillion becquerels, 210 quadrillion becquerels of cesium-137 into the atmosphere. Now, I don't even know how much that is. I guess I could look that up, but that's times 30 years. I mean, I have no clue what that even means, but it said 1 million becquerels, so 210 quadrillion becquerels. Oh, I don't know what that means. I couldn't even give you an estimate. Quadrillion. I mean, that's a 4 trillion, I guess. 4 million, 400 million. I really want to know what these numbers mean, but I don't. So that would mean if we were at 1 million, 100 million. So maybe it was 400 million. I'm guessing. I'll have to look that one up. Number 21. Of 36 signs the media is lying to you about the radiation from Fukushima is affecting the West Coast, and that's the truthwins.com archives. The AU-funded study concluded that Fukushima released up... Oh, I just read that. Number 21. The very experienced Australian adventurer has stated that he felt as though the ocean itself was dead as he journeyed from Japan to San Francisco recently. The next leg of the long voyage from the Osaka to San Francisco, and for the most of that trip, the desolation that tinged the nauseous horror and the degree of fear. After we left Japan, it felt as if the ocean itself was dead. McFadden said, "We hardly saw any living things. We saw one whale sort of rolling helplessly on the surface, and what looked like a big tumor on its head. It was pretty sickening." And I did find pictures of conjoined twins, which I don't think it's even been heard of. So I'm kind of getting upset about this myself now as I'm reading this. The last article was from Atmospheric Chemistry and Physics, and that was, I'm trying to find dates for this. It just says 2013. And usually when the scientific articles, we usually get a date. I'm just getting a year. I'm not getting a date. And this one, The Ocean is Broken by Greg Ray, October 18, 2013. And that was right before the cleanup, November 18th, at the Daiichi nuclear power plant. That's Ivan McFadden aboard the funnel web, pictured by Mac Mason Hubers. Back to the article. We hardly saw anything living. I've done a lot of miles on the ocean in my life, and I'm used to seeing turtles, dolphins, sharks, and big flurries of feeding birds, but this time, for 3,000 nautical miles, there was nothing alive to be seen. In place of missing life was garbage in astounding volumes. Part of it was the aftermath of the tsunami that hit Japan a couple years ago. The wave came in over the land, picked up the unbelievable load of stuff, and carried it out to sea. And it's still out there everywhere you look. And you can find that article at theherald.com Australia, or theherald.com.au. Newcastle. The ocean is broken. Really sad. But that's a perspective. That's what we would consider an opinion. But I mean, it's a, what do you call it? This person has experience, and he's an authoritative opinion. Number 22. It is being projected that the radioactivity of coastal waters off the U.S. West Coast could double over the next 5 to 6 years. Well, that would be true if they dump the wastewater further offshore from Tokyo. Number 23, the deputy chairman of Russia's State Duma Committee for Natural Resources, Maxim Shingarkin, said that seafood captured off the northwest coast of the United States is so radioactive that it represents a danger for mankind. And this is the voiceofrussia.com, Echo of Fukushima reaches the U.S. article. And inside my 36 signs the media is lying to you about how radiation from Fukushima is affecting the West Coast at the truthwins.com archives. The next leg, wait a minute. The next leg of the long voyage was from, wait, there's something wrong here. Okay, good double. There's no article there, my mistake. The article itself says the Fukushima NPP continues to disrupt the general public even almost 3 years after the accident. New leaks of radioactive water beyond the protective dam took place recently due to heavy rain. People give less and less credence to nuclear experts' assurance that the sea was not polluted. Meanwhile, the U.S. newspaper, the Cape Cod Times, reported that toxic leakage from the NPP is approaching the U.S. West Coast. 70 sailors from the USS Ronald Reagan that took part in the rescue operation after the accident were going to sue TEPCO, the Fukushima NPP operator. Sailors claim that the company did not warn them about all risks that the crew could face. The aircraft carrier spent a month in the offing at the distance of 10 miles from the NPP in a spot off the nuclear power plant, in a spot off the radioactive fallout. The crew desalinated overboard water and drank it and used it for cooking, which caused cases of cancer and even blindness. Ocean pollution within 10 miles around the nuclear power plant is understandable. The main part of the nuclear disintegration products got into the water and not into the air like in Chernobyl. Ocean currents carry harmful substance far away. Even in other parts of the world, fish and seafood drawn from the contaminated streams can be dangerous for humans. Maxim Shingarkin, deputy chairman of the State Duma Committee for Natural Resources, says currents in the world oceans are so structured that the areas of seafood capture near the U.S. northwest coast are more likely to contain radioactive nuclides than even the seas of Okhotsk, which is much closer to Japan. These products are the main danger for mankind because they can find their way to people's tables on a massive scale. Contaminated fish can swim anywhere, so fishing is not absolutely safe in any region of the world anymore. It's impossible to test entire catch for pollution, just as it's impossible to introduce a universal ban on fishing. The Japanese government has just partially banned fishing in the most dangerous areas. Vladimir Silviak, co-chairman of the Eco-Defense International Ecology Group, is speaking. The Russian government planned to restrict fishing in the Far East. As far as I know, no such restriction has been introduced so far. Still, it is possible that some steps will be taken. As for atmospheric pollution, radionuclides from Fukushima reached California and Mexico 8 days after the accident. Russia was not affected, Maxim Shingarkin says. Air emissions were not projected either on the Sea of Okhotsk or Sakhalin or the Far East or the Kuril Islands. So airlifting cargoes does not seem dangerous so far. I mean, so far because not all the nuclear fuel has been taken out of the power generation units. This means that radioactive emissions into the atmosphere are possible as a result of heating. It took years after Chernobyl to make detailed conclusions about the scale of nuclear pollution. We're having a similar situation at Fukushima, Vladimir Sylviak believes. We'll probably know the consequences of this accident in 10 to 15 years, and it's clear that the large amount of fish, seaweeds, and everything the ocean contains has been polluted, and it's clear that pollution spreads all over the earth. And it's clear that vast territories have been polluted in Japan itself. All this is generally clear, but we need research to provide more details, and this will take a long time. Meanwhile, even now, every bluefin tuna fish drawn near the California coast has signs of radioactive pollution. This information is provided by one of the research portals, globalresearchreport.com. Most likely, polluted waters approached those parts because the level of radioactive iodine in brown algae has risen over 200-fold. The level of cesium-137 has risen all along the U.S. West Coast. Cesium-137 has been found in local berries and mushrooms. Local residents often report the death of birds. Radioactive nuclides have even reached the shores of Alaska, where the population of sockeye salmon have dropped dramatically. Some experts believe that we can expect consequences of accident at the Japanese nuclear power plant. And that was from thevoiceofrussia.com, and the date on that was December 26, 2013. And that brings me to number 24. According to one recent scientific report, radiation from Fukushima could affect our seafood for many generations and ultimately kill more than 1 million people. This cycle will last for many generations because of the food chain of fish and other marine fauna, and the radioactivity will be recycled. And in fact, the meat content that increase rather than decrease by decay. Even if only 1/100th of the radioactivity, more than 1 E15 becquerels of cesium-137 were to enter this recirculation pattern, the collective whole-body ingestion dose over many generations would exceed 1 E7 sieverts, sufficient to kill more than 1 million people. The numbers don't mean a whole lot to me, but this article was from Nordisk Gruppen, npsag.org, publications. NPSAG research reports estimate a consequence from the Fukushima disaster. Keshe Consulting, I would believe it was September 5th, 2011. So this was right after, and looks like a PDF file, and it's probably big. It says 1,23 megabytes. Oh, it's 1.23 megabytes. Number 25 of the 36 signs the media is lying to you about how radiation from Fukushima is affecting the West Coast at the truthwins.com archives. Number 25, the Japanese government has estimated that approximately 300 tons of highly radioactive water is pouring into the Pacific Ocean from the destroyed Fukushima nuclear facility every day. Now, I really want to check that number because they supposedly have a containment field that kind of did leak when they had a rainstorm. They just kind of admitted to. Tainted Water Daily by Audie Cornish and Jeffrey Brumfield. And this was August 8, 2013. And you can listen to the story. The Japanese government has announced that radioactive groundwater is leaking from the Fukushima nuclear power plant. To try to stop it, the TEPCO, which owns the plant, has proposed building an underground wall of frozen earth around the reactors. The ice wall is supposed to keep groundwater from flowing in and radioactive water from leaking out, but nobody knows for sure whether it would work, considering the nuclear rods actually heat water, so I don't know if that would be the best solution, and that's at npr.org. Interesting. I'm out of there. Number 26, senior researcher of marine chemistry at the Japan Meteorological Agency's Meteorological Research Institute says that 30 billion becquerels of radioactive cesium and 30 billion becquerels of radioactive strontium are being released into the Pacific Ocean from Fukushima every single day. Now, we haven't had any reports on strontium or strontium. My mistake. And this little website's kind of doing the spinning thing. This is the Asahi Shimbun Asian Japan Watch, asahi.com. Analysis contaminated water flowing into oceans despite ABE's claim. And that was September 30th, 2013. And I guess after all these reports came out, TEPCO had to do something. So November, they had planned to do it, but November they started to clean up of reactor 4. Fukushima number 1 nuclear plant seaborne radioactive readings measured to block leaks from the harbor. So they put it in the ABE. Maybe I'm going to find. Oh no, ABE on September based his assertions on measurements taken in the outer ocean. Water contaminated with radiation is flowing into the Pacific Ocean from the harbor at Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, despite assurances from Prime Minister Shinzo Abe that it has been completely blocked. Yeah. Then it goes on to give dates, and it actually gives levels of cesium and strontium and other beta ray sources. And on September 15, 2013, at the surface it was 320 becquerels per liter, and at depth it was 190 becquerels per liter. So you actually only want, what is it, 1 becquerel for safe levels. So, and this was September 15th, before the cleanup. After they had put some kind of dam to block it. So, I don't mean to have dead air here, but I'm kind of looking at this picture. And maybe, I don't know. The government has estimated that 300 tons of radioactive groundwater is leaking every day into the plant's harbor. Harbor has an opening to the outer ocean through which 20% of seawater within is believed to be replaced by seawater from the outer ocean during one cycle of high and low tides. Michio Aoyama, senior researcher of marine chemistry at the Japan Meteorological Agency Meteorological Research Institute, estimated 30 billion becquerels of cesium and 30 billion becquerels of strontium. The daily output of 60 billion becquerels is required to make that happen. Radioactive materials become dispersed by sea currents, but available monitoring data, such as those released by TEPCO, have shown no decline in their levels. Radioactive cesium and strontium continue to be detected within the harbor. They are believed to be derived from highly radioactive water that leaked through groundwater pits in April and May 2011, after the water was used to cool melted nuclear fuel during the early stages of the nuclear accident that began March 2011. To deal with the situation, TEPCO installed a 0.5 millimeter thick polyester barriers, which it calls silt fences, in the harbor in April 2011 to suppress seawater traffic, but the barriers cannot totally block the movement of radioactive substances because water and fine mud particles can penetrate the silt fences through grids of minuscule holes, each 0.02 to 0.03 millimeter in size. TEPCO, the Fukushima Prefecture government, the Environment Minister, the Nuclear Regulation Authority, and other organizations have been monitoring radioactivity levels in seawater and the seabed at 200 to 300 sites, most of them within 20-kilometer radius of the crippled nuclear plant. But the methods of these measurements have been called into question. Experts point out a lack of consistency in the sampling and analysis method during the September 13 meeting of the NRA panel tasked with ocean monitoring. Measurements could vary tenfold at the same site, one expert said. The analysis methods are outdated, said another. NRA Commissioner Kyoko Nakamura said she will take measures to improve the situation. Data should be taken accurately and reliably, Nakamura said. The NRA plans to begin monitoring seabed soil in an area that stretches 20 kilometers east of the nuclear plant and 50 kilometers from north to south. The plan will make use of equipment developed by the University of Tokyo researchers that is attached to a wire and lowered from the ship into the seabed to measure radioactive cesium levels in soil at the ship as the ship moves along, and they're going to be testing the seabed. NRA plans to monitor 600,000 sites in 1 meter intervals and put together the results before the current fiscal year ends in March. So that would be this year, 2014, I hope. And this was the ASAHI Shimbu Asian Japan Watch at asahi.com. Analysis. So, number 27 of 36 signs the media is lying to you about how radiation from Fukushima is affecting the West Coast at thetruthwins.com. Number 27, according to TEPCO, a total of somewhere between 20 trillion and 40 trillion becquerels of radioactive tritium has gotten into the Pacific Ocean since the Fukushima disaster began. So maybe we should find out about tritium. And if you want to know more, the expert on this is really Helen Caldicott. I mean, you can watch any one of her YouTubes and really get a much better understanding of all these isotopes and their effect, their longevity. And this is the truth. This is going back to its own site. Website, so I'm not going to actually read it, but it does have some links to Yahoo. I'm not sure that I want to go there, but tritium would be something you probably want to research. Number 28, according to the professor at Tokyo University, 3 gigabecquerels of cesium-137 are flowing into the port of Fukushima Daiichi every single day. I'm not going to go in there. We went from quadrillion to gigabecquerels. I'm not sure what that means. 3 to the 15th power, I don't know. It is being, number 29 is being projected that significant levels of cesium-137 will reach every corner of the Pacific Ocean by the year 2020. Well, yeah, I guess it'll take 30 years for it to dissipate, yep. And it continues to flow, yep. Number 30. It has been estimated that the entire Pacific Ocean will soon have cesium levels 5 to 10 times higher than what we witnessed during the era of heavy atomic bomb testing in the Pacific many decades ago, and we've already read that respectively in the article by the Woods. What are they called? The Woods Research Institute? Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and they have their own website, and that was the article I read that gave the information of the isotopes. WHOI.edu Oceanus Magazine. It was the article. You can check that out. Number 28, according to the professor at Tokyo University, 3 gigabecquerels of cesium-137 are flowing in. Okay, I read that. Number 29. It is being projected that significant levels. Oh, I read that one too. Number 29. 30. Number 30. I don't know why I was clicked on number 27 and number 30 of 36 signs the media is lying to you about how radiation from Fukushima is affecting the West Coast. And remind me, we have to look up tritium. Number 30 has been estimated that the entire Pacific Ocean will soon have cesium level. Oh, we read that one as well. That then what was witnessed during the heavy atomic bombing? Yeah, okay, my mistake. Number 31. No wonder why it's taken so long to read these. The immense amount of radioactive material being released into the Pacific Ocean from Fukushima has caused environmental activist Joe Martino to issue the following warning. Your days of eating Pacific Ocean fish are over. And this is the WHIO.com website. I'm not sure who the activist is. Eric Shute, S-H-U-T-E, and they provided a video transcript by newsy.com, which was dated September 1st, 2013. So, number 32, the iodine-131, cesium-137, and strontium-90 that are constantly being released from Fukushima are going to affect the health of those living in the northern hemisphere for a very, very long time. Just consider what Harvey Wasserman had to say about this. Iodine-131, for example, can be ingested into the thyroid where it emits beta particles, electrons that damage tissues. A plague of damaged thyroids has already been reported among as many as 40% of the children in Fukushima area. That percentage can only go higher. In developing youngsters, it can stunt both physical and mental growth. Among adults, it causes a wide variety of ancillary ailments, including cancer. Cesium-137 from Fukushima has been found in fish caught at as far away as California. It spreads through the body but tends to accumulate in the muscles. Strontium-90's half-life is around 29 years. It mimics calcium and goes to our bones. Just wanted to repeat. Iodine-131 is said to last about 8 days. So unless there's a continuing source of iodine-131, which most people believe is what's happening at Fukushima, that would be true. Number 33. Outdoor radiation levels at Fukushima recently hit a new all-time high. Okay, that would be important to note. This is Russia Today, dated December 8th, 2013. 20 sieverts per hour at about 15 sieverts per hour, the company said. The ventilation pipe located outside on Friday measured radiation at 8 locations around the pipe and the highest estimate at 2 locations. This is the highest level ever detected outside the reactor building, according to local broadcaster NHK earlier. TEPCO said radiation levels of at least 10 sieverts per hour were found on the pipe. The ventilation pipe used to conduct radioactive gases after the nuclear disaster may still contain radioactive substances. The earthquake triggered a tsunami that hit the coast, damaging the plant, causing the meltdown of 3 nuclear reactors. The crippled reactor burned through the concrete basement while the water used to cool them. Let's back up. Concrete is permeable. The water used to cool them had been leaking into the soil and contaminating the groundwater on the premise of the nuclear facility. The radioactive water stored at the site has been seeping into the Pacific Ocean. The water leakage has raised health concerns among Japan's neighbors. South Korea has been testing fish caught off the country's coast, according to country's fisheries ministry. The chairwoman of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission assured that the radioactive water will reach the U.S. coast at safe levels, and that's because when it's in salt water, cesium-134 dilutes with a 2-year half-life, and cesium-137 has a 30-year half-life. And the other one was iodine-131, has an 8-day half-life. The highest amount of radiation that will hit the U.S. in 2 orders of magnitude, 100 times less than the drinking water standard. 100 times less than the drinking water standards, cited by Bloomberg. So if you could drink the salt water, which you won't be able to, it's still fairly low. 400 tons of contaminated water is being produced at the site on a daily basis in an attempt to solve the storage problem. The International Atomic Agency, IAEA, proposed to consider dumping toxic water into the ocean after lowering the level of radioactive materials. Regarding the growing amount of contaminated water at the site, TEPCO should examine all options for its further management, including the possibility of resuming controlled discharges into the sea in compliance with authorized limits. IAEA said in a statement. TEPCO has been testing high-tech water processing machines called ALPs, which can remove all radioactive material from the water except tritium. However, the low-energy isotope is considered to be less dangerous than other radioactive isotopes such as caesium and strontium. We're only talking about cesium. This is caesium. Okay, so now we have 2 other to add to the list. Also contained in tainted water. We'll have to get back to that one. Number 33. 36 signs the media is lying to you about how radiation from Fukushima is affecting the West Coast. TheTruthWins.com archives. Number 34. According to the Wall Street Journal, it is being projected that the cleanup of Fukushima could take up to 40 years to complete. That would be interesting. I'm not even going to go look at that. Number 35, Yale professor Charles Perrow is warning that if the cleanup of Fukushima is not handled with about 100% precision, that humanity could be threatened for thousands of years. Conditions in the Unit 4 pool, 100 feet from the ground, are perilous, and if any 2 of the rods touch, it could cause a nuclear reaction that would be uncontrollable. The radiation emitted from all these rods, if they are not continually cooled and kept separate, would require the evacuation of surrounding areas, including Tokyo, because the radiation at the site, the 6,375 rods in the common storage pool, could not be continuously cooled. They would fission and all of the humanity would be threatened for thousands of years. So it would be important to note that some of these rods are damaged, some of them are spent, some of them have not been used. They're in pools together, spent and unspent. They are losing their outer coating of some kind of material, which eludes me right now. Probably several different materials to protect them from the air, because once it touches the air, it causes the fission reaction. Now they're saying if they touch, they'll have a fission reaction. So, number 36. There are very alarming reports that new unexplained plumes of radioactive steam are rising at Fukushima. Japanese officials are not able to get inside and see what is causing the plumes. Some are speculating that the crisis at Fukushima just got a whole lot worse. The following is from the recent Ecologist article. Unexplained plumes of radioactive steam have been rising from Fukushima Reactor Building 3. Could a major meltdown be on its way? Fukushima Reactor Building 3 exploded on the 13th of March 2011. The initial tsunami was the 11th. As a result of hydrogen buildup reaching the building's containment and emanating a huge plume of radiation, the reactor itself is in meltdown. And how fresh plumes of steam have been seen coming out of the structure, these have now been confirmed by TEPCO, the owner of the nuclear plant. From the 19th of December onward, and company believes the steam is coming from the 5th floor of the building, and this is exactly where they're storing the spent and unspent fuel rods, on the top of the building. So if it has an explosion, it blows the rods out of the building. Interesting dynamics of architecture. It was built on a fault line, and it was built on the coastline of a tsunami riddled nation. Okay. However, it does not know the cause of the steam. Lethal levels of radiation and the physical damage of the structure have so far made entry and inspection impossible. And this is the 36 signs that media is lying to you about how radiation from Fukushima is affecting the West Coast. The truthwins.com archives. If a full-blown meltdown does happen at Fukushima, it would be an environmental disaster unlike anything that has ever been seen before in humanity. I want to say we already kind of have something that's never been seen before in history of the human race, as far as a physical nuclear power plant, 3 meltdowns on 1 power plant. As we enter 2014, we are entering a time when the world's becoming increasingly unstable. The global economy is being shaken. Political corruption is seemingly everywhere. Evidence of advanced social decay is all around us. And the earth itself is starting to groan and crack and increasingly regularity. But the mainstream media continues to insist that everything is going to be just fine. That is one of the reasons why I wrote my new novel. The American people deserve to hear the truth and be warned about the great challenges that are rapidly approaching. In the end, millions upon millions of people could end up getting seriously ill as a result of all this radiation coming from Fukushima. Most of them will never ever know why they've gotten sick. And if there is a major earthquake or significant accident during the cleanup of Fukushima, we could actually see huge sections of Japan being evacuated permanently. It would be hard to overstate just how serious all of this is, but you won't hear about that from the mainstream media. Their story, is that everything is okay and they are sticking to it. So what do you think? Please feel free to share your thoughts by posting a comment below. About the author, Michael T. Snyder, from the former Washington, D.C. attorney who now publishes The Truth. His new thriller entitled The Beginning of the End is now valuable and available on Amazon.com. And I will post this. And with that, I don't want anybody to think that that's the end-all be-all. We have the MT Keshe statement, which promises to uplift with healing technologies of alternative energy. And he's been working on this for many years. He's tried to contact Fukushima, Japan, energy agencies, and other countries to provide options to help heal the planet one section at a time, and he offers workshops and all kinds of interesting things. So I'm going to read his statement, and we're going to come back after a short, I would say 15-minute break, maybe less. I will be right back. I want to allow people to stretch. It's been almost 2 hours of just reading this wonderful information, and I am in need of a drink of water, mostly. I don't want to play this pod again. Fukushima, fear, 3 years after the tsunami. Diane Sawyer reporting. Maybe you can get something out of that after what we just read. It would be interesting. And we're going to have some original music. And I will be back. You're listening to awakeradio.co.uk and shazizradio.com. This is Alchemical Connections with Chrissy McMahon. And we have Girl on Top. Corporate War Junkies. We'll go with Atomic World. I think that would be more interesting. And we'll see you right back here on Alchemical Connections on awakeradio.co.uk and shazizradio.com. Thank you for listening.
You see what sending out them negative waves did, Moriarty?
But oddball, I did try and tell them, but they won't listen. I tried.
Sure.
But I did try.
on, man. Don't hit me with them negative waves so early in the morning.
But I can't force them to listen. I can't.
Always with the negative waves, Moriarty. Always with the negative waves. Have a little faith, baby. Have a little faith.
But I keep trying. Oddball, I keep trying. But they won't listen. They won't tune in. They really won't.
Why don't you knock it off with them negative waves? Why don't you dig how beautiful it is out here? Why don't you say something righteous and hopeful for a change?
Tune in to Awake Radio for your positive waves.
You're listening to Shaziz Radio with the widest variety of original music types anywhere in the world, 24/7, all day, all night.
Here tonight, an ABC News investigation inside Fukushima 3 years after that earthquake and the tsunami that caused the meltdown. Tonight we want to show you how bad the radiation is and ask if they are doing everything they can to keep it from coming toward the United States. ABC's Cecilia Vega takes us into the hot zone.
This used to be a thriving community of farms and fishing villages until March 11, 2011. Japan's largest earthquake ever. The tsunami that followed engulfed entire villages, flooding the Fukushima Daiichi power plant and triggering a nuclear catastrophe. 2.5 years later, we gain rare access to examine the fallout by land and by sea to find out if Fukushima is still a threat to the rest of the world. Near the plant, a 12-mile stretch of evacuated land still teems with radiation hotspots.
So this is our permit we've got to get.
Locals call it the no-go zone.
We can go.
On the other side, ghost towns, where time just stood still.
This better work.
We suit up, armed with radiation detectors to tell us when we're in danger. We go inside Fukushima's ground zero to see the unprecedented cleanup underway. Though critics are skeptical, the power plant's embattled operator, TEPCO, is up to the task. The closer we get to the ruins of the meltdown, our radiation detectors climb.
We're in another hot spot.
It is a serious warning. TEPCO told us we can only spend 1 hour inside the plant. Any more time and we risk harmful radiation exposure. Radiation right here alone, about 2,000 times higher than outside Fukushima.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor into a safer location.
It is a vital, some say dangerous first step to shut down this plant, a process that will take 40 years. And here's what TEPCO says it's doing to block the radiation from entering the Pacific.
Underneath this concrete, there's a chemical barrier that prevents the water from floating out. These steel tanks right here, another barrier, and that orange buoy over there is a silt fence, another barrier, 3 right here in this area alone to keep contaminated water from going into the ocean. Will you ever know how much contaminated water has made its way from this power plant into that ocean?
TEPCO spokesman tells me it's difficult to give an accurate number. So we joined a team of scientists on the hunt for answers. What they say they find? Radiation 1,000 times higher than before the meltdown, though it's still below the legal limit for swimming and drinking.
Can the damage that's been done be repaired here, or is it too late?
It's not too late, he says, but Japan can't do it alone. We need help from the rest of the world. And they're not alone. We meet oceanographer and radiation expert Ken Bessler in Fukushima, where he's come to examine the fallout. The Japanese government claims radiation is contained in this small harbor outside the plant. But this team of scientists says they measured radiation leaked to Fukushima more than 70 miles away. Trace amounts of radiation have already been detected in bluefin tuna caught near California, though experts say Americans shouldn't worry. Radiation dilutes as fish migrate to the U.S.
I think the fear of what's happening outside the local area is a bit exaggerated. For Americans to worry about swimming on our beaches when I can swim here, to eat our fish when not too far from here the fish are safe, I think is overblown.
The cleanup goes on. But what about the damage we can't see? Radiation on land and in the ocean that could be Japan's invisible enemy for generations. Cecilia Vega, ABC News, Fukushima, Japan.
And by the way, we did check with some leading radiation experts here in the U.S. who tell us so far no tests on the West Coast have shown the levels of the kind of cesium radiation that would implicate radiation from Fukushima. And you can see a lot more.
Yeah, and we're back on awakeradio.co.uk and shazizradio.com. I don't know if anybody's still listening. I know I am. And this is the fun side of the show. Yeah, I'm gonna go way over. But we're gonna get into the Keshe Foundation. I just ate something and try to soothe my throat. I don't know if that was a good idea. But Awake and Empowered Expo, thriving on an age of higher consciousness. We just had the Global Breakthrough Energy Movement Conference in October of 2015. And one of the things that came of that amazing conference was not only did people connect, but they realized that there's more of them than they had ever imagined. And I guess it's kind of like the same in the political and the esoteric and the metaphysical and all these different conspiracy theorists. You start hearing this information and you kind of feel isolated because you're not hearing it on the mainstream news. You don't think other people are really aware of what's happening. And then you find out there's more of us. Not only that, there's actually more of us than there are of them, whoever they are. So, we're in good company. That was my great friend, Karen DiBiase, Girl on Top Band, with Atomic World. We'll just let that fade out in the background. She's kind of crazy. I really love her songs. I'm a rocker. I'm really a punk rocker. This is the Awake and Empowered Expo. Keshe Foundation Plasma Physics may hold key to decontaminating Fukushima, and this was published January 8, 2014. On January 6th, Kerry Cassidy of Project Camelot hosted 4 essential minds to discuss the continuing debacle at Fukushima, as well as the recent bold public statements made by Moran Keshe Foundation. What ensued is sure to set minds in motion with a new wave of ideas. Among the all-star cast, including MT Keshe, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, Mike Harris, and Matthew Stein, and that was at the Project Camelot interview conversation. The broadcast had all the excitement, anticipation, and horror of the 1986 Challenger disaster. The good news: technologies very well may exist to slow or curtail the Fukushima disaster today. The bad news: there has been and continues to be a complete media blackout of all important Fukushima information, and humanity finds itself late to the party currently. This was published by Jeffrey 313 at the Awake and Empowered Expo. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Bodhi portal 2014, the Bodhi portal blogspot. I'm not sure if this is where he originally posted this, but MT Keshe statement for 2014. 2014, the year that the new technology will change the course of humanity, and it will bring untold changes. At Keshe Foundation, we make 2014 the year that advanced technologies will be mass released to the public, that they can show their power to create conditions that change through all layers of human society will be achieved. We shall put an end to hunger and wars through the release of everything in our possession. This will be it, scientifically or technically, to every man, be it scientists or world governments around the world in equal measure. In 2014, the Keshe Foundation, through its institute, shall deliver to mankind as a whole the technology which the mankind has been waiting and praying for from the beginning of time. With delivery of an advanced technology unknown up to now, we shall put an end to hunger, wars. We shall make sure that all men will have enough to attain sustenance and shelter, that there shall be no need for suffering. We give and facilitate the release of technology to the men of greed, that they can produce enough gold and precious metals that they could wish for, that eventually they will shy away even to show any interest in possessing such materials. In opening the space in 2014, it is, in its true sense, we would bring in more precious materials and sciences unknown to men, that these new materials and knowledge will be used for forging tools of lasting peace on this planet. In 2014 will be the beginning of the new era, the point of change for humanity from what has been the same old on this planet from the time of Adam. We make one promise to the world leaders, and that is change your and your nation's ways of your citizens shall change it for you through the delivery and application of the new technology and its use. No man shall from this year on will be allowed to take up arms to fight, and no man shall be left hungry and homeless on this planet because of wars. Use your arm manufacturing factories to deliver homes and food to the humanity, which up to now you have been developing tools of war in them, and you have instigated unwanted wars because of them. As the man who has the knowledge of the universe at his disposal, I shall use every knowledge and power available to me to bring these factories, which you have erected for making tools of war and their products, to stand still with stroke of a pen. Then we wonder who shall disobey, as it is in the books of God that one shall not kill. The promises of the change, as has been in the holy books of the past, which the men have been waiting for centuries for, shall be fulfilled. Our program for this year is set to be: We shall put an end, first and foremost, to the problem of Fukushima in January. In February, we shall make all efforts to create an environment to stop the production of arms across the world through release of technologies which make the present advanced aircraft, missiles, and nuclear weapons irrelevant and ancient. In June, we will deliver technologies which can deliver sustenance to world populations totally free of any cost through the release of new systems that can change air into sustainable food and energy supply without a need for farming land, that no child will sleep with hunger. By September, we will deliver the technology for every man to be protected from the natural elements like cold and rain without being dependent on other man handouts of tents. We shall make delivery of clean water at any point on the earth free of charge a reality by releasing the already developed technologies. By the end of December, we will make sure that there are no grounds for disruption for space travels on a regular basis from all the nations on this planet, that all shall harvest the reaches of the universe collectively and equally. Those who have doubts about our work, be ready to become soldiers of the peace and unity before the end of this year. MT Keshe. And then it goes on to offer the interview that Kerry Cassidy had on Project Camelot with the 4 individuals. Some facts as they stand today. Keshe, back to the article at the Awake and Empowered Expo.com article. Keshe kicked off the live stream with a major info dump that would have kept Tesla's attention. As he has watched the Fukushima disaster unfold with the rest of us, he stated his concern that there are many truths that have not been told. There have been a huge amount of radioactivity released, and now the situation is critical and has went from bad to worse to ridiculous. Dr. Richard Allen Miller echoed the thoughts of surely 99.9% of all biologists and physicists living in reality by stating, "I don't have an answer. I have concerns." He wisely stated that in addition to talking about cleanup, every single reactor needs to be turned off. They are all 20 years old and leaking. The statement is backed up by many prominent voices in the anti-nuclear movement, among them Arnie Gunderson, Dr. Helen Caldicott, and Dr. Christopher Busby. Mike Harris agreed by stating, "I think it's time for criminal prosecution for the boards of directors in the power down reactor worldwide." Regarding North America, Dr. Richard Allen Miller stated, "We have enough indication that the radiation is already here," citing findings of plutonium particles in Arizona and Colorado. Possible Fukushima solutions. The Keshe Foundation. In addition to his library of past public research and findings, Keshe's publicly released statements have effectively put his foundation and his name on the line. From those points alone, he, his foundation, and their discoveries carry strong integrity and promise. Keshe's technologies focus heavily on plasma state physics. More directly, the plasma has a core that creates its own gravitational field and atmosphere. The natural process releases magnetic energy, creating an environment that can attract various radioactive particles. He claims this can be done with solid and liquid matter. If that is the case, this would translate into soil and water having radioactive particles ripped from them, essentially restoring the matter to its original state. The questions would still remain of what to do with the radioactive material once it becomes separated. Keshe goes on to say that this process would only take a couple of days and estimates that in 5 years, 80% of Fukushima could be decontaminated. This thinking is certainly moving in the right direction. Keshe and his foundation have received no communication from the Japanese government, TEPCO, or IAEA despite repeated attempts to reach out. With this in mind, he has put on the deadline of January 30th, 2014 as their dishonorable silence, after which time he states that he will go forward with teaching workshops to the Japanese people, giving the facts. This The technology and materials are available now. Meanwhile, TEPCO remains hard at work using duct tape, Yakuza members, and the homeless, in what continues to amount to a radioactive Rubik's Cube of problems in Fukushima Prefecture. The latest broadcast provides a much-needed glimmer of hope for the seemingly dire situation. And for those who don't know what duct tape is, go to your local hardware store. The Yakuza members are the mob in Japan that basically run everything, and the homeless, which they are using to affect the cleanup at the Daiichi nuclear power plant.
There are times when you might feel aimless and can't see the places where you belong, but you will find that there is a purpose. It's been there within you all along, and when you're near it, you can almost hear it. It's like a symphony. Just keep listening, and pretty soon you'll start to figure out your part. Everyone plays a piece, and there are melodies in each one of us. Oh, it's glorious, and you will know how to let it ring out as you discover who you are. Others around you will start to wake up to the sounds that are in their hearts. It's so amazing what we're all creating. It's like a symphony. Just keep listening, and pretty soon you'll start to figure out your part. Everyone plays a piece, and there are melodies in each one of us. Oh, it's glorious.
This is Chrissy McMahon, and you've been listening to Alchemical Connections. We had a wonderful evening tonight. We learned a lot about Fukushima, about radiation, isotopes, the media. There's a lot more to discover. Found an article that was given to me by Alfred Lambremont Webre, who will be my guest next week. I'll be posting that broad and wide. But I want to thank everybody for listening to Alchemical Connections on wakeradio.co.uk. I'm your host, Chrissy McMahon, and broadcast on shizuzradio.com. I'm here every Thursday morning, 9 a.m., and Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you soon.
Howdy, y'all. This is the Muddy Mudman, and I listen to Shizuz Radio.
You see what sending out them negative waves did, Moriarty?
But oddball, I did try and tell them, but they won't listen. I tried.
Sure.
But I did try.
Oh, man. Don't hit me with them negative waves so early in the morning.
But I can't force them to listen. I can't.
Always with the negative waves, Moriarty. Always with the negative waves. Have a little faith, baby. Have a little faith.
But I keep trying. Oddball, I keep trying. But they won't listen. They won't tune in. They really won't.
Why don't you knock it off with them negative waves? Why don't you dig how beautiful it is out here? Why don't you say something righteous and hopeful for a change?
Tune in to Awake Radio for your positive waves.